That's the committee of the whole, and when we're bringing Thomas's report. Yeah. We're just double checking to make.
Second. With that, we'll pass over to the clerk to get things started.
Great, thank you. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the lands of the Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, there is not a supplementary agenda item this evening. We do have one disclosure of pecuniary interest, and that is Councillor Carmen McGregor with regards to item 18A. And there are no deputations this evening, Council, so we will go to the consent agenda. And tonight we only have 3 reports that are being pulled from the consent agenda. 14A, we have the Core Services Base Budget Efficiency Review from KPMG, final report. We have a presentation on that this evening, and Councillor Harrigan and Oche have also asked that to be pulled. Item 18A, we have the conflict of interest of Councillor Carmen McGregor, and Councillor Kirkwood White would like to pull for comments. And the final report being pulled is item 18C, and Councillor Sakachi has requested that be pulled. Therefore, the remaining reports will be on the consent agenda, and they are 12A, B, C, 13A and B, 14B, 15A, 16A, B, C, 17A, B, C, 18B, D, and 19A and B.
Councillor Sakachi and Bondi, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
I'll second that, Mayor Caniff. It's
Okay,
Claire Latimer.
Councillor Latimer, perfect. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 18-0. Moving on to finance, budget, and ITT, we have Core Services Base Budget Efficiency Review, KPMG final report, and Gord Quinton would like to introduce.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff and Council. I'm Gord Quinton, Chief Financial Officer speaking. So back in the spring of 2001, Council approved hiring an independent third-party consultant to do a base budget efficiency review to compare and investigate whether Chatham-Kent is a lean and efficient municipal government operation. And tonight we are receiving the final report with KPMG's conclusions and suggestions for improvement. Just a reminder to Council that the province did fund 65% of the cost of this report through the Municipal Modernization Grant, and we thank the province for that. Tonight we have Suk Betty, Katie Denbach, and Esther Lynn with us presenting the results. The staff at KPMG interviewed all council and senior staff performed a general staff survey, and consulted with the public on several occasions, in addition to using the Let's Talk CK platform to reach out for general comments. They compared us to similar municipalities and used their collective experience in doing similar reviews with others. The executive management team met with KPMG on several occasions and agrees with the recommendations and conclusions in the report. KPMG has a short presentation, and then we'll open up for questions of council. That can either be to KPMG, myself, or any member of the executive management team. And so I'll now turn it over to KPMG for the presentation. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gord, and thank you very much for having us here this evening. What we'd like to do is we've put together an executive summary, and we'd like to just walk you through some of the highlights of the final report, as Gord mentioned, relating to the core services base budget efficiency review. As you may recall from our interim presentation, KPMG was engaged by the municipality to perform an inclusive, collaborative, and detailed review of current service delivery models with the goal to make recommendations for efficiencies and cost savings where applicable. Perfect. So we've got the project objectives and principles listed here, and I'm actually going to move on to the next slide, if you don't mind, Suk, which is the progress slide. So what this is showing is that we are essentially complete with respect to our project. So it's the culmination of the work effort that that has been put forward. We've completed the last phase of the project, and the project as a whole entailed significant stakeholder interviews and engagement, document review, benchmarking analysis, and the development of the opportunities that we've provided to you here this evening. Through our stakeholder consultations, our quantitative analysis, our benchmarking, and just our general knowledge of what other Canadian municipalities are doing as best practices, we've put together a number of recommendations for council and for the municipality. The report itself focuses mainly on the top 7 opportunity themes and their related sub-opportunities, but it does also list a further 6 items for consideration in the longer term. I will say throughout the course of our review, KPMG has found the municipality of Chatham-Kent to be an overall lean and efficient single-tier municipal organization that manages and delivers a wide variety of services across a large and dispersed geographical area. And we're aware that any type of service change can be sensitive in nature. We really do understand, especially given the history of the municipality and its very diverse residents, that it can be difficult to implement change without resistance from certain areas of the community. And so that was one of the reasons why it was important to provide ample opportunity for community input as part of this review. We do feel, though, that there are some significant opportunities here for Chatham-Kent that would help move the municipality forward in a positive direction and benefit the community as a whole in the long term. These are things that we're seeing a number of other municipalities in Canada choose to undertake because their councils see the long-term benefit in doing so and choose to lead the way forward through change. So Suk is going to go over the 3 most impactful opportunities shortly. Some of these you will have seen before, as these are items that management has brought to council in the past. Some of them are anyways, but we really do feel it's important to put them forward again because as part of our analysis and review, they truly do represent significant opportunities for the municipality to gain efficiencies and save costs. And as I mentioned, we have seen other municipalities take on these challenges and be successful in implementing opportunities like these. So we do feel it's important for council to continue to consider them. And I'll hand it over to Suk to go over the summary of our findings just at a high level.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back with everyone today. So I'll just run through the highlights of our review. It's captured on the slide, and you'll hear us say in a number of instances that the findings are really around balancing the financial resources and the capabilities that the municipality has to really modernize its operations through the use of technology and alternative service delivery approaches. Among some of the key highlights, we found that there is a strong discretionary reserve, which offers the municipality greater flexibility in implementing some of these options. There is a need to, when it comes to client-facing services, to really balance the online presence with some of the in-person services. And you'll hear us talking about buildings, and we found that there are over 341 structures delivering services across the municipality. And with that, there's several environmental benefits that drive towards climate change adaptation and can reduce energy levels and greenhouse gas emissions, which are already higher than the Ontario average when compared. Chatham-Kent also manages a large portfolio of infrastructure, roads, bridges. We noted 67% of the 864 bridges are rated good to very good, and that leaves about 1/3 of bridges, or 289 bridges, that are needing investment. This figure is significant considering the high number of total bridges among the comparator groups was approximately 256 bridges. So you'll hear us talking about the need to balance both fiscal responsibility and operational efficiencies. We identified, as Katie mentioned, 3 top areas of opportunity. Number 1, advance the asset management program by rationalizing the number of roads and bridges that the municipality maintains. This is also a council priority. Number 2, balance the financial costs and repurposing of operating the facilities and improve services by consolidating facilities where appropriate. And number 3, implement a client-centric approach to delivering services, and that speaks to enabling your operations with greater use of technology. We expect, based on our experience, that these 3 top opportunities will achieve the following. 1, it'll balance the needs of the communities within the municipality for fiscal responsibility and service delivery. 2, it'll reduce back office corporate costs through technology-enabled operations and a reinvestment in online client-facing services. And lastly, it'll realize savings in infrastructure and engineering services delivered by the municipality. I'll just pass it over to Katie again to run through how we arrived at our top opportunities.
So we've outlined on the next slide the opportunities at a glance here. So as you can see, we've grouped them into 7 themes, and within each theme, there is 1 to 6 sub-opportunities that we've identified and have detailed further in our report. And those are sort of the short-term areas for consideration. We've also identified 6 further themes on the right-hand side there, which should be considered more longer-term themes. So as we were developing these opportunities for your consideration, we reviewed and analyzed the information on the current organizational structure and service delivery with a focus really on identifying gaps and opportunities that were aligned with the mission, vision, and strategic plan. So you can see how we've grouped them here. And Suk is going to go over them in a little bit more detail shortly. But if you move on to the next slide, Suk, the other item I'd like to point out before we do so is sort of how we've gone about ranking them. So each opportunity was assessed based on the financial impact that it has on the municipality, the citizen impact, whether it was aligned to the municipal service delivery or citizen experience, risks, whether there were any foreseen barriers to implementing the opportunity, as well as strategic alignment with the CK Plan 2035. And then there's an overall organizational impact gauge. So you can see there that green indicates positive overall impact to the organization, yellow is neutral, and red is negative. So Suk is going to go over the 3 most impactful opportunities in a little bit more detail at this point.
Thank you for that introduction to the framework. And as Katie mentioned, we recognize that with every decision council makes, it's important to weigh the trade-offs, and the 4 impact criteria that we assess these opportunities against is meant to show you what some of those trade-offs may entail. So I'm going to walk through the three top opportunity themes. In some cases, there's some sub-projects or options within these opportunities. So I'll run through the description, the key highlights with respect to our assessment and the rationale, and then dive into some of the sub-opportunities. And as Katie mentioned, these were rated based on individual impact, but also overall organizational impact. So starting with advancing the municipality's asset management program, we noted that the municipality has one of the largest infrastructure portfolios in Ontario. It's currently funding approximately 50% of its life cycle needs. There's an opportunity, therefore, to rationalize both the number, the function, and location of roads and bridges. And this can really help to drive significant cost savings and address the risks associated with operating assets that are beyond their useful life. So the risks that we're trying to address here is really the risk of infrastructure failure. The financial impacts are going to be in terms of future savings in managing and operating roads and bridges. Certainly, we understand there will be a minor negative impact in the short term for residents that rely on any services, the roads that are replaced, reconfigured, or relocated. But we find that this opportunity has a strong alignment to Chatham-Kent's strategic initiatives, particularly the one around financial and economic prosperity and environmental sustainability. And this was among the opportunities that were ranked highest in terms of overall organizational impact. And on this slide, we just identified the fact that there are, in comparison to the four peer municipalities, a large volume of roads and bridges managed by Chatham-Kent, and by highlighting on this slide that this opportunity for rationalizing roads and bridges has been provided to council in past budget years. But it is something we would endorse and strongly recommend. The next top opportunity is made up of several sub-opportunities in terms of how the municipality may go about balancing its financial costs with the operating of facilities and also improving levels of service. Here we noted again, there's 341 facilities across the municipality. These facilities are run to operate client-facing services as well as operational services such as public work garages, waste management facilities, and utility stations. The cost to run these facilities is approximately $14 million a year. Especially for arenas and recreational facilities, there's been a shift in usage, and it's important to recognize that with shifts in usage and capacity, there may be an opportunity to rationalize and consolidate or repurpose some of these facilities. What that will achieve is stronger efficiencies within the operating costs of these facilities, and also help redirect its the resources to modernize and bring its other facilities up to date. We understand that this will have an overall impact on citizens. However, if done correctly, there can be benefits in terms of providing equal service to residents. On the next page, we just highlight for council the three sub-opportunities. We find that there's three sort of trends and themes that emerge with municipalities. One is to move towards a one-stop shop model of community hubs and multi-purpose facilities. The second is to close aging or underutilized facilities. And the third is to consider delivering programs through partnerships with private and not-for-profit community groups. On this slide, you also see that we've rated citizen impact and operational impact to be able to demonstrate the trade-off between these sub-opportunities. And the third of the top opportunities is to look at balancing the need for in-person services and online services. Stakeholder consultation certainly indicated that the municipality is in its infancy in terms of digitizing its service delivery. So there's opportunities, particularly in online licensing services, bylaw enforcement, digitalizing the development application, submission and review process, the use of CRM tools to deliver economic development services, and implementing online registration and electronic payment services for recreational programs. Some of these are already underway and have been addressed or identified as significant opportunities in a concurrent customer service delivery review. Again, the overall impact will be significant initial financial investment to implement these online and citizen-centric delivery services. However, we feel that there's long-term financial benefits and improved collaboration between the municipality, its citizens, or customers. And there's the added benefit that services can be accessible around the clock. With this particular opportunity, we had identified 6 sub-opportunities that are reflected on this chart, all of which are high impact to the citizen and relatively high impact for the operations. Again, some of these opportunities are underway and have been investigated by administration. And we recognize that there would be significant opportunities to helping the municipality really move the dial and mature in its abilities. Okay, I'll just pass it back to Katie for any final thoughts.
Yeah, just before we wrap up, I just wanted to extend my thanks to the executive management team at the municipality, our thanks, I should say, on behalf of Suk and Esther and our team, certainly, as well as council and all of the community members that participated in this review and provided us with their time and insights. Obviously, it certainly makes for a much more well-rounded review when we are able to get multiple viewpoints and thoughts. And so just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the KPMG team for the time that everyone has spent in assisting us in completing this review.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. My first question is to either Katie or Suk. Both of you, thank you for the presentation and the detailed report that was provided to council. The question that I am wondering if you can just give a bit more detail on is on the impact assessments, so that you have on page 10 of the full report. There's like that little infographic that gives a couple of bullets about the impacts, right? Where it's like green, yellow, or red. Basically, green is positive and red is negative. I'm particularly interested in how you, what sort of considerations came into play when you were choosing the citizen impact, because that one seems to be, I would say, like the most subjective, and how it was that you determined something was like a positive citizen impact or a negative or neutral.
Sure. Thank you for your question. So I think largely it depends on what the actual recommendation was and whether it was citizen facing or not. So some of the recommendations are more internal in terms of where the impact lies, but certainly where we thought there might be, based on especially what we heard in the community consultations, if we felt that there might be some negative reaction from the community or a large portion of the community would be impacted, that would sort of drive that citizen impact towards the red versus, but also considering that what might be negative impact for some is positive impact for others. So no strict science to it necessarily, but trying to consider all angles and the impact on all citizens to come to an overall conclusion there.
Great, thank you. I'm only asking because I noted with the roads and bridges infrastructure, and pointedly KPMG has identified that that's kind of been on discussion at council a number of times, right? Particularly given our rural community landscape. And it's interesting because right now in my ward, as you are likely aware, I have we as Chatham-Kent have a community of Wheatley where the entire town, the downtown core is shut down. Nobody can get in through the main area. But just a little bit east of that is a couple of kilometer stretch on Talbot Trail where the road is closed. And there are people who are living in that closed section. It's due to an environmental erosion challenge. And years later, I'm still getting concerns about worried people about fire service, ambulance service. What if there's an emergency? What about police service? How do we think about that? And for a rural community like Chatham-Kent, I'm sure we could think about maybe a couple of roads that don't have homes on it, but ultimately most of the rural roads lead to taxpayers' homes, and oftentimes those taxpayers are connected to family farms, and those farms are connected to the largest industry in our community, which is agriculture. So I'm always curious as to how a third party kind of balances what that impact looks like, because I think for council it's a lot more complex, and I really appreciate how that was kind of called out in the report, that it's difficult to make those decisions. So thank you for that. My next question is actually, I believe, more for staff, either Gord, to yourself as CFO, or potentially, do we say Don/Thomas, right, as we are looking towards our new CAOs, is also, I really appreciated the color coding and how I was looking more for those little green dots, because in the final report, if it was like that minty green color, it meant it was a new idea. So some of the later ideas in the report are kind of in charts, and I can't really see where the dots align, but to the leadership staff, are those areas that you're really kind of focusing on and polishing because those are kind of net new ideas worth exploring? Or is the focus here on kind of what our major top 3 biggest bang for buck is? Because I'd say those kind of came around council. Or are we looking for the baby step QI, quality improvement, small efficiencies over time as a result of this report? Kind of a loaded question, sorry.
Thanks, Mayor Caniff. I can start off, and then perhaps Don or Thomas can join in. There are a lot of details in the report. I think the actual full report's 162 pages, and in that are many projects that are detailed, and a lot of them are things that have been planned or I would say in the works that were going to be brought to council over time. The pandemic has sure brought the need for technology and the ability for both our employees to work remotely, but also for our customers to do business with us remotely, has certainly brought that perhaps forward 5 years faster than it naturally would have occurred. And so you will see in the upcoming 2022 budget, there are several initiatives where we're asking for the commitment of funding to finalize and implement many of those online services, for example. And so that's the type of thing that, so yes, there are some new ideas, but a lot of what you see are things that were in the works. There's whether System A needs to be updated before we implement System B, and that type of thing that's been going on in the background over the last couple of years anyway. But I would say overall, there's a lot on the go in Chatham-Kent, and a lot of those things that can be accomplished in a relatively short period of time over the next couple of years. Don?
Thanks, Gord. Just if I can add a couple of other comments, I think Gord covered a lot of it. I think it was great to see the report and see that a number of things that had been worked on or presented to council previously were reinforced by the KPMG group. I think to answer more directly your question of Councillor Harrigan, I think we need some direction from council in terms of what there's a political appetite for. because as much as a lot of these can lead to efficiencies or cost savings, sometimes there's a consequence in terms of service delivery or an impact on our community. And I think that's really where we need direction of council. You know, where's the appetite for us to take some of these different initiatives on? I don't think any of them are mutually exclusive. I think they all in time could be considered, but I think council needs to consider, you know, what's the right balance between our service levels, the impact on our community, and the need to have ongoing cost efficiency. So I think from administration's perspective, we're prepared to tackle all of them. And I have great confidence on the go forward basis. Mr. Kelly, who might be speaking now, will be able to take the lead and pull a lot of those forward in the future.
Thanks, Don. So I agree with all the comments from both Don and Gord. And there's a lot of different approaches that we could take, but we only have a limited number of resources. And it would be our goal that we're working, taking those resources and putting them on the right projects. One that, as Don describes, have some opportunity for success in the future and really meets the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. Mayor Ken, if I see there's a large number of hands to follow me, so I just wanted to say that in speaking with constituents about this report, there's a lot of conversation about the importance of kind of having a fresh look and at that third-party review, and then balancing it with the, you know, locals know in our own backyard social planning that we have to do. So I think there are some ideas woven in here, and also some tensions that you've pointed out that as a council we've been grappling with for the last little while. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Oche, then to Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just have a couple of questions. One, I noticed the comparable cities and weren't the ones that we normally compare with, as far as having the same, close to the same amount of bridges and then close to the same amount of roads, gravel and paved. So I'm not sure why we didn't use those. I know Sudbury is one that is used quite often for to compare to. So I'm not sure if there's an answer for that, or why we would use like a city of London where their gravel roads are just minimal. It just doesn't seem to be apples to apples to me.
So I'm happy to provide some comment there. When it comes to municipal comparators, there are almost never apples to apples. I will say it's always a challenge, whether you go based on geographical area, whether you go based on population, whether you go based on other factors. And so we worked with management to determine what we as a group all felt were the most useful comparators, certainly recognizing that there is no true perfect comparator out there for Chatham-Kent. So it was really a matter of where might we aspire to be. So sometimes it's looking at where you think best practices lie and how do you compare to those municipalities. But we always kind of put that caveat when we do the benchmarking across comparator municipalities that when we pull data from FIRs, it's only as good as the data that the municipalities provide, and B, it is difficult to find true comparators. So we chose these ones in conjunction with management, just based on what we felt would provide the most useful information when we did our benchmarking analysis, certainly recognizing that there are definite differences between those municipalities.
Thank you. Now, have you looked at the growth that's happening in all the rural towns as well before this was out, or was this going on too early to see everything that's in the works at the moment?
Yeah, so the comparator analysis that we did was largely based on 2019 FIR data, simply because 2020 was seen to kind of be an anomalous year with respect to that. So this analysis was done prior to that most recent growth.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm sure you know that Chatham-Kent is one of the largest population of seniors, and it seems like we're really pushing to the IT now. how are we going to take care of seniors who, if we're closing local offices in small towns, what we would do for them, as many do not use computers.
Thank you. So perhaps that's a question to administration. As it's sort of said in the report, it's finding that right mix between the two. And we do have a lot of individuals that want to continue to come in and meet a person at a service desk, and that's it's finding that mix between online services, because there's also a large amount of constituents that would like to perhaps purchase a dog tag at 7 o'clock at night, or in more convenient times. So it's not a one-stop. We won't be able we won't be able to convert entirely online ever. We don't plan on doing that. It's just finding that right mix and between an online service and an in-person service. And I just want to remind council that there is the service review on our customer service area will be coming to council within the next few meetings prior to the 2022 budget.
Thank you, Gord. And just a couple more questions. One, obviously, agriculture is the largest business in CK. I'm just wondering if our largest business was automotive, would we think about closing bridges and roads to those places? It just, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense to close off and have farmers running on the highways or farther than they have to. Just like I wouldn't expect us to close a road to the Civic Center, although it is closed, or one near it as it's being worked on right now. But I find it very difficult to when agriculture is the biggest business in CK at the moment. I don't know if that's to Gord or whoever wants to answer this, but I would think it was to the people at to KMG. Thank you.
So certainly our recommendation requires further analysis to determine, which roads or bridges would be subject to relocation. So at this point in time, because of the scope of our review was quite broad in nature and not really a deep dive into those specific areas, I would say there would definitely need to be further analysis done to determine where and how broad such closures would be, as well as who would be impacted in order to make a decision like that.
Thank you. And my very last question would be, and there was a ton of information in this, and thank you very much for that. But I would think we would suggest hubs again as a, sorry, I'm not wording this properly, but as a way of saving, maybe closing some buildings, but also keeping things in the rural towns. I'm not sure of your thoughts on that, Katie. Would you be able to comment on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. That was part of when we were recommending consolidating facilities. That was part of that recommendation there. It is something that we see being done quite commonly across municipalities to great success.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. And thank you, Katie and Suk, for the report. My question deals with staffing, which is something I'm sure most of us on council, and in my time, kind of a long time, it's something we hear about all the time, that, post amalgamation, our staffing levels have gone up, and when amalgamation was not presented but forced upon us, there was this thought process that staff would come down because we're going to amalgamate all these different departments from all these different 23 communities, including fire, police, administration, of course, etc. And staffing levels seem to have gone up. Not seem to, they have gone up.
Actually. I thought it
So-
did go down.
Pardon? Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was talking. So in your report, in the summary of findings, says Chatham-Kent deploys a lean resourcing model with lower levels of full-time staffing positions observed in general, and particularly for service areas of public works, parks and recreation, and planning. So I believe the study. I know that you guys did a lot of good work. I was part of your interviewing process initially. So I'm asking if you could just comment to council and to the viewing public that our staffing levels are appropriate, and if anything, they're lean, as you state in your report. Because that's really, as counselors, this is what we hear. Oh, there's too many staff, administration's bloated. This is the political stuff that we get. So you do address it, but could you just comment on that? Because really it would be helpful for us. And somebody did chime in, I don't know who it was, but maybe our staffing levels are lower than pre-amalgamation, which I don't know if you had an analysis of that, of the 23 communities that were brought together. And then of course there was county government, and it was kind of a different bird altogether. But in a very general way, what we Ward 6 councillors, which is City of Chatham, so we don't really hear much about bridges closing and paved roads versus unpaved roads, just not a concern for the people living in the city. And we've just got 2 new bridges, and one's almost done, another one. So that's really not, that's a big priority in your study and analysis, but for Ward 6 councillors, that's not something we hear about. And I'm just trying to kind of address the things that we do hear about, which are a lot of things, but staffing levels are one of them, post-amalgamation. So if you, Katie or Sook, could comment on that, or staff, because I think somebody did try and jump in there, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Perhaps I can start it off. So the analysis that we performed, as Katie previously mentioned, was based on staffing levels from 2019 and comparisons with peer municipalities. And so with that, it's a conclusion that we identified was that Chatham-Kent is in fact operating fairly lean based on that analysis. However, that is a point in time. And someone else mentioned that these opportunities are holistic in that implementing changes will take a great degree of effort and resources, particularly different capabilities, and in terms of project management staff, technical staff, etc. And so staffing levels should be continuously evaluated through the journey of implementing the opportunities in this report or in down the road, as some of the opportunities were longer term in nature. So at this point in time, based on the 2019 data, our analysis shows that staffing isn't a key concern. However, those efficiencies that are suggested as part of these top opportunities may change the staffing profile down the road. So it's something to continue to look at.
And thank you, through Mayor Kenneth. So when you did the staffing analysis, I'm sure you did, but just for confirmation, did you look at our level of consulting? Because obviously we could have a very lean staffing level if we outsource a lot of work. And I'm not trying to beat anybody up here. I'm just trying to, get to answers that I'm given. And that's another thing that we hear about is our consulting costs are very high. Was that part of the analysis when you're using the comparables of, say, London or Windsor, the different communities? Are consulting costs, are they in line, or would you say lean with other communities? Because that's a big financial burden. I wouldn't say it's a burden, but it's a financial cost. And was that part of the analysis, the degree of consulting costs that the municipality incurs?
So to answer your question, the report has a lot of details in terms of each service that the municipality provides. It's contained within the service profiles where we outline the costs of delivering the service. When we did the staffing review, we looked at full-time and part-time complements. And so to answer your question, we didn't compare to the level of outsourcing on that basis. But if there is a service that is outsourced, those details are captured and useful from an ongoing management and administration perspective. So it's in the service profiles, which do capture how services are delivered. But from a staffing perspective, we focused on like I said, the permanent, full-time, and part-time complements.
Okay, so the consulting costs were not part of the analysis?
No, not in relation to
staffing. Okay, well, that answers that. Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Cannon.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I guess I don't really have any questions. Most of my questions have been answered. I guess just more so of a comment. And, just kind of holding this pencil here, it's a perfect metaphor. And kind of my comments is, and maybe, Mayor Caniff and Mr. Quinton can kind of put this into realizations themselves. It's nice to hear that we're lean and that we have, so to speak, keeping our pencil sharp. But there's only so sharp we can keep our pencil before essentially it's just no longer useful and it breaks. And my concern is that now that we have this information, we know we're doing things good and we're doing things proper and we're keeping a lean operation. The challenges are more to the forefront than before. We've recently been instructed about how much it's going to cost, us to fix Talbot Trail, the challenges that we're facing. And I guess my question would be to Mr. Quinton is to see how can we utilize this specific information to leverage it in the challenges that Chatham-Kent is facing. In the report, it's nice to hear about comparing, not being able to compare apples to apples. And that's because Chatham-Kent is so unique in regards to the tier of municipality we are and the challenge we're facing. So this is great information. A lot of it that, is stuff that we've already known, but how can we utilize this and leverage this, Mr. Quinton, to approach upper levels of government to show how unique we are instead of just basing us on a population of 100,000+ in regards to our funding?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. As the report clearly indicates, although the conclusion is that we're a lean and efficient municipal government organization, one of the clear things and why KPMG is focused on the one of their items is on the roads and bridges area is because, as we know, Chatham-Kent has over 3,500 lane kilometers of roads and the around 800 bridges. And that is, when you look at our comparators, they'll have a quarter of that amount of on both categories. And so with our rather low population density, we're forced to pay the pretty well the full burden on repairing and maintaining all those assets. And our roads and bridges assets make up the largest, I think it's over 70% of our asset management plan is just those two categories. And we're only about 50% funded on that. So that's sort of the crux of what we're faced with. We're lean and efficient based on our circumstances. But our circumstances are pretty poor compared to the rest of the province when it comes to the amount of roads and bridges we have to maintain. They're very expensive to maintain. And and we receive about $5 million of federal gas tax, or $6 million of federal gas tax, and about $5 million of Ontario Community Investment Fund funds from the province, along with the occasional one-time grant, such as our Connecting Link grants from the province. That's what we. I know Councillor Bondi mentioned amalgamation, and it has nothing to do with our amalgamation, but just to be clear, prior to 1998, like I say, nothing to do with amalgamation, just coincidentally at the same time as amalgamation, is when the provincial grants stopped on road projects. We used to receive 90% grants on most of our major bridge projects and major road renovations as individual municipalities across Chatham-Kent. And now we just received a small fraction of that amount in the federal gas tax and grants from the province. So that is the biggest item that impacts our asset management plan funding, and it is our biggest challenge. And this report supports our continued efforts to continue to lobby both levels of upper governments for increased levels of funding for infrastructure, because that's going to have the biggest impact to Chatham-Kent taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Quinton. And just to wrap up my comments, I'm glad that you touched on that. That was where I was going next in regards to the pre-amalgamation, in regards to the funding aspects. When this report came out, I did have some conversations from some community members and said, well, this wasn't a challenge when, prior to amalgamation. And it was very helpful to understand the fact that when you're receiving 90% of your infrastructure funding for bridges, it makes it a lot more easier to do the work. I guess my last quick comment is, and it's more of just a comment, is that Councillor Harrigan touched on it a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of simplify it, is the fact that with the cost of inflation and how it's increasing, even us as a municipality operating extremely lean, let's say we're closing 2 or 3 bridges a year. Let's say if we even made the very difficult decisions to close a couple facilities, it's not going to really make a huge difference in regards to how much our bottom line is moving up every year, due to the fact that infrastructure is getting more costly to replace, and the amount of money that we're receiving is not meeting that same level of increases. So there is a fine balance, and I think that it's and I just want to commend staff, which, I mean, as councillors, sometimes we might not do enough of. I appreciate the fact of how that lean that we're running, but I think politically what it shows us is that as a council, as a mayor, and as EMT, we have to start really banging the table in regards to the challenges we're seeing in Chatham-Kent, because for us to improve as a community, we need more funds. And I know a lot of communities can say this. And lastly, as a council, we're going to have to make some very challenging decisions, because I think that the only way we can address this without funding is to continue to invest in our growth and make sure that our growth becomes more dense, and we're able to get those nice things as other communities without being, strangled, every budget time, seeing the increase. So if we don't see those increases of fundings, that's going to at least, help out with inflation. I feel that every single budget, Chatham-Kent, it's going to get harder and harder, no matter how many bridges we close and no matter how lean we are. So those are my comments, and I really thank you for the time, Mayor Caniff.
Before I go to you, Councillor Pinsonneau, Don, you had a comment? No? Okay, you're good. So Councillor Pinsonneau, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Worship. Chatham-Kent has a lot of roads. We have a lot of bridges, but I think we do a decent job of managing them right now, being that we are that much underfunded. Councillor Sakachi kind of touched on it, but life cycle, it's a sliding scale. As inflation goes up, you get less done for the money you're putting in, and we can put in 4% of our budget into life cycle, and the next year still be in the same place because inflation eats it all up. The problem with Chatham-Kent is we're a community of communities, and in order to close something in one of the communities to try to streamline services and and possibly save some money, you're taking a vital piece out of that community. The rural homes, and I'm talking outside of any of the urban areas, they really don't feel like they're getting their bang for their buck on the dollar. They basically have a road in front of their house. They don't have any of the amenities that we have in the urban areas, and they do believe they're getting a raw deal. Close the bridge. It's like we are a unique animal here, and it's really hard to try to appease. I don't honestly believe there's a political appetite to start closing all these roads and closing these bridges. So we truly do have to concentrate on growing the assessment growth. Now, I think we've had a couple of really good years, maybe 3 of good assessment growth. That's the direction I think more than anything we got to go in. It's unfortunate that the province downloaded all this onto us, and like 21 Highway and 2 and all the bridges that are involved with them, it costs us a ton of money. You know, it's a struggle every day, but I think we do need to really money to help us, because, you know, with the exception of maybe Sudbury, we are different than every other, and we have all this cost. It's virtually, you know, at some point it's going to be become unsustainable to keep up with it. Anyway, our assessment growth is, you know, right now, well, things are good. Keep pushing that as much as we can, and I don't think there's the political appetite there to close everything. So moving forward, I think that's what we got to do. Thank you.
Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through the mayor. I don't need to repeat. I agree with all of the councillors that have spoken before me, particularly Councillor Pinsino and Councillor Authier and Sakachi. I also think we do a pretty darn good job. If you look at our comparators, which I agree are not really a true comparator for Chatham-Kent, you'll notice, with the exception of one of those comparators, that 67%, 65% they have the same percentage of bridges that are in good shape. And we do that. We maintain that with less number of people to share the cost. So I also agree that growth is something we need to continue to focus on. But I wanted to ask Mr. Quinton. He said it's important that we find the right mix with regard to going forward and digitizing our services. I wonder, Gord, is the service review report that we expect to receive in the next little while, is it going to recommend a path or a plan on how to find that right mix? Because that's what this report was great, and I want to thank Suk and Katie, but it really didn't tell me anything that we already didn't know. It basically formalized and confirmed what we already knew, and something we can take to the upper governments in our arguments for more need for more funding. But I also want to know what we're going to do with it right here in our council, and what we can do, as Gord says, the smaller projects that can be done right away. So we need a path forward. Gord, could you respond to that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'll leave the recommendations for the actual customer service review until they actually come to council. But just ahead of that, we do need more related to the pandemic and how it's moved technology forward, and everyone's acceptance of using technology forward. We do have several items in the budget, and a couple reports have come to council recently on that, on document management, and I think there's a couple more coming to the next council meeting on the need to digitize, give all our workers all the electronic tools they need in the field to do their work, so they're not perhaps driving back and forth back to a central garage to get their next task or things like that. We need to do everything that we can give our staff to be more efficient in the field, and then our back offices to have them accessible after hours for those transactions that can easily be done after hours. There's some things, some transactions and some questions that of course have to be done face-to-face with staff, and that will continue to be an expectation that going forward that will be delivered. It's having that right mix, but you can't consider you can't consider any type of transfer to online services until you actually have those in place, and even the implementation of some of those items can take 1 or 2 years to even have the option of transferring more to online. So there's no there's no easy savings identified, but like I say, the details of that service review will be coming to council shortly.
Well, I agree with you, Gord, but I think it's important that the public hear that we recognize that a majority population in our community is of the older adult, that there will always continue to be a need for face-to-face services. And I just wanted to make sure that that was included in that report, because I know I will be looking for that and the public will be looking for that. I have no problem with providing our staff with the tools that they need to do the job as efficiently and as effectively as possible. It's just that I think it's really, really important that we know we aren't ever going to go fully online for really any service, because there will always be residents in our communities who need that face-to-face communication, be it phone or at the service desk. So thanks very much.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I appreciate the report, and I think that it's fairly unsurprising. We know from past BMA studies, we know from service reviews, we know the stories. We are a big municipality with lots of old infrastructure. It's expensive and it's getting more expensive. And right now we're trying to maintain it all and still provide services. And sometimes those two things, balancing them becomes difficult. And I think one of the things that we shouldn't gloss over is the opportunity with technology. And I know that often we say that we're an aging community and we should really maintain those face-to-face services, which we should in some ways, but we also should give the aging community some credit. A lot of people use online services, and it's not just a cost savings, but it's a accessibility issue. If you can provide services online, people can access those when they're available. If they're working shift work, they can access them without having to bring their children into a municipal center or without having to worry about accessibility of a building. So I think that we should look at that as an opportunity, not something that's taking away from the experience of residents. And I really do think, moving forward, we need to think about this type of study when we go through our budget process. Sometimes it feels like we can be one council for 350 days of the year and another one for the 2 weeks or however long budget might be. Those decisions we make every night, those accumulate into what happens at budget. We know the challenges, and we can't get to that budget process and pretend we aren't aware of what they are and look for solutions that just don't exist. There's not a lot of savings to be found in cutting lifeguards, and when we compare that to what we're facing with infrastructure. So I think that it's a real positive step. We're moving to multi-year budgets to take a step back and have a better long-term view of this. And it's really helpful to have this information now, probably for the third time, from a different source. So now from a outside third party, we've seen it from BMA, we've seen it internally. So I think we can be pretty confident that we understand what's going on in our community, and it's really just comes down to political decision making on which direction we want to take. Thank you, and apologies for the background noise.
Councillor Kirkwood White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought for sure somebody else would mention this, so I'm going to just jump in here. I might have the last word. I just wanted to say that I was very, very appreciative of the mention in the report to enhancing public public-private partnerships, and the need to take a look at the other sectors of our community, the business sector and the nonprofit sector, to see if there is something that we can engage with them in supporting what we're trying to do here in Chatham-Kent. Thank you.
Bruce McAllister, you had a comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought I'd just have a quick comment with regard to growth. I've heard a few councillors mention, obviously, still encouraging growth in the community to obviously combat the rising costs of inflation and infrastructure. So just briefly, I just want to council community to know at the next council meeting will be an update on the growth strategy, including an update on some preliminary growth forecasts that we decided to redo from 2019, just given the development activity that's happened, and obviously the pandemic impacts, among other things. But the very short answer is you're going to see a report that is going to be a lot more bullish and positive on growth over the next 10 years and 25 years than we did 2 years ago. So I'll leave that with you. You can expect that report at the next meeting.
Seeing no other hands, I just want to make a couple comments myself. I've heard, I think I echo various comments right across the board as far as that moving forward, there's all sorts of opportunities for us. It was great to have the report basically say that we are pretty efficient. And I think to a great extent, we were aware of that, but we wanted to make sure the public was aware, make sure we weren't missing things. So as we move ahead, technology, we have to be aware of the 21st century and adapt to it. So as we move forward, but I want to emphasize that moving forward, it's council's decision. So, that I don't want each and every one of us worrying about that it's this council as a whole, we're going to decide on where we go. And that's why it's critical that we get these recommendations and we come together and work towards that, the community we all want to live in. So excited about the future of Chatham-Kent. And as Councillor Pincinel goes, a major piece of that is growth. And we're seeing that now, as Bruce just pointed out, but I expect the next several years, we're going to see that. And so how do we grow with it? And how do we grow services, and how do we enhance services? How do we make Chatham-Kent a place where we all want to live, work, and play? That's what each and every one of us are here for. So I'm excited about the future. With that, I will need somebody to move and second it. Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Solomon, can I get you to move the report, please?
Mayor Caniff, if it's just for information.
Okay, perfect. One step better. With that, I see no other questions. We'll move on to community development.
18A, application for site plan control, North Kent Mutual Fire Insurance Company, 29553 St. George Street North, Community of Dresden, North Kent. We have a conflict of interest by Councillor Carmen McGregor.
Councillor Foss and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to move this, please?
So move, Your Worship.
And I will second.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Oh, Councillor Kirkwood White had a question or comment.
Oh, Councillor Kirkwood White, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like many organizations in our community, the North Kent Mutual folks have been through a strategic planning exercise, and the report doesn't reflect it, but they have changed their name to Maple Mutual Insurance. So I just wanted to say congratulations to the friends over at Maple Mutual.
Thank you for that. Seeing no other questions, we'll put this to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. And 18C, Chatham-Kent Community Improvement Plan Property Tax Increment Equivalent Grant Application, Handy Brothers Heating and Cooling Inc., 5 Classic Car Drive, Community of Harwich, South Kent.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Thompson, can you each move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
And seconded.
Councillor Sakachi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to take a very brief opportunity to just give a little community shout out to Handy Brothers. They've been a long-standing business in South Kent. They've definitely expanded over the years, and they are a significant employer in our small community. They are moving, but they are staying in South Kent, and they've done a lot of really good things in our community lately. It's nice to see a local business expanding so much, investing in not just our community, but the people in our community and into our community in general. So just wanted to tell them, give them their thanks for continuing to invest in our community and helping in our community, and be happy to move it as mentioned, Mayor Caniff.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 18-0.
We will now go to notices of motion. The Councillor Crew, you have one, please.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Marjorie Crew, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the December 6, 2021 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas hoarding disorder is a mental illness with serious impacts on the person, families, communities, emergency responders, affecting safety and well-being, and is an extremely complex situation. Hoarding is a known cause of health and safety concerns to the person, such as fire hazard, infestations, cause for eviction, and homelessness. Serious health and safety risks are experienced by emergency responders in efforts to assist a person who is in a hoarding situation. Therefore, the Director of Employment and Social Services, in consultation with Fire, EMS, Building and Development, Police, and Public Health, as well as community partners, provide a report to Council about the issue of hoarding with the data on the prevalence in Chatham-Kent and how other communities respond to hoarding, with any recommendations to be returned by the end of January 2022.
We'll move now to closed session reports. Councillor Crew, can I get you to that? And when Councillor Oche, can I get you to second the reports?
Okay.
I'll second.
Oh,
sorry.
do I? That's okay. I'm new at this too.
He's avoiding the rush.
That's right. Okay. So council closed session report for Monday, November 8th, 2021. Members present, Councillor C. McGregor, Chair, Councillor C. McGregor, Mayor Caniff, Councillors Oche, Bonde, Sikachi, Crew, Foss, Finn, Hall, Harrigan, Kirkwood White, Latimer, McGrail, B. McGregor, Pinsino, Solomon, Thompson, and Wright. Council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase property identification number 007390133, Store Street, Community of Chatham, Section 239-2C of the Municipal Act 2001. Proposed acquisition of land by the municipality with regard to Rose Beach Line realignment and acquisition of lands and easement, Section 239-2C of the Municipal Act 2001. Personal matters about identifiable individuals with regard to the CAO recruitment, Section 239-2B of the Municipal Act 2001. And Council's closed session report for Monday, November 15th, 2021. Members present, Chair Councillor C. McGregor, Mayor Caniff, Councillors Oche, Bonde, Sikachi, Crew, Foss, Finn, Hall, Harrigan, Kirkwood White, Latimer, McGrail, B. McGregor, Pinsino, Solomon, Thompson, and Wright. Council directed administration on personal matters about an identifiable individual with regard to CAO recruitment, Section 239-2B of the Municipal Act 2001. Council received information on advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose with regard to East Lawn Linwood subdivision, item 10I on the open session agenda, Section 239-2F of the Municipal Act 2001. I so move.
My apologies, I second.
Okay.
All right, hearing no questions, we'll put it to vote.
Couple more counselors. All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Non-agenda business. Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wanted to ask a quick question, either from Dr. Reedike or perhaps who's ever on. Health Canada approved vaccination for 5 to 11-year-olds recently, and just there have been some questions in the community about when that might be rolling out or where they would look for updates from Chatham-Kent on that.
Mayor Caniff, it's April. Would you like me to respond to this?
Yes, please.
Thank you. We are finalizing the process. We have received further direction today regarding the provincial rollout of vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. So we will be releasing first thing in the morning a media release that will detail exactly how clinics will be organized and run, and how parents will be able to register their children to sign up to begin receiving vaccinations. So we are quite excited by this move. We anticipate to start hopefully by the weekend. We are still awaiting our shipment of vaccine, and if all goes as planned, we will be able to do that. So I would recommend that everybody watch for that media release tomorrow, and then get online and get their children registered. We are looking at a superheroes theme. We're transforming the Bradley Center into a superheroes, I want to say extravaganza, hopefully to make it a bit more kid friendly. So lots to come over the next couple of days on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Fosk, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a shout out to the community of Dresden. This week they're having a fairly busy week, starting Thursday night, where they're going to have a lighting ceremony to introduce the new lights for Dresden. The goal is to make Dresden Southwestern Ontario's Christmas town. On Friday, they're having a tree of tribute lighting. And on Saturday night is the Dresden Market. If you've been there before, you'll know how successful that is. And I encourage each and everyone to come out and take part into those festivities. Thank you.
Councillor Finn, followed by Councillor Oche.
Just a shout out for next Monday for Chatham Goodfellows Porch Light Campaign. If you'd like to donate, they're accepting toys, cash, checks, non-perishable food items. They just ask you to leave your porch light on and a volunteer will come by and collect that.
Councillor Oche, followed by Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Your Worship. One thing I want to bring up is yesterday, maybe late afternoon, I got a message saying, hey, is something going on in Wheatley again today? And I said, no, not that I know of. And then I find out on social media today, yeah, something is going on. So lack of communication there, which I hope will be fixed. And secondly, Friday night, this coming Friday night, is the reverse plate parade in Tilbury at the Auto Mall. If hopefully some of you can come out. And Saturday, Santa and Mrs. Claus will be going through the town of Merlin. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. A quick question on the 3rd Street Bridge. Things are moving along swimmingly as I'm watching it. I live very close to it. So I'm just wondering if we could get an update on when completion and traffic will be allowed, because I thought the idea was November. So, there's still November. So if maybe that would probably be Thomas's department. And then secondly, if Councillor Foss could just clear up the Dresden thing, which I'm excited about, but I had read somewhere that the Dresden market was Friday night, not Saturday. So if you can just, I'm probably the only guy that thinks it's Friday, but so Bridge, Dresden
Just
market.
to confirm, the Dresden market is Saturday, Councillor Bondi.
And is that like 6 p.m. until, is that the idea?
Councillor Foss, do you have the idea of the hours? I thought it was 4 to 9 or something like that. But
See, I'm way off.
I believe it starts at 3.
Okay.
That's correct, 3 to 8.
Get there early. There's lots of business to go to if you get there early and there's not open yet.
All right, well, I'll be there with many children. And just the bridge update would be great. Thank you, Mayor Kenneth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Thomas Kelly, GM of IES. We provided a written update, I think, in the last council package, along with all of the updates to the Wallsford bridges. At this time, the contractor is working very hard, but he has had some challenges along the way that has really set them back on their timeline. First of all, COVID, staff shortages due to COVID. And you recall that the massive buildup we had of debris, I guess about a month or so ago, that set them back at least a week or two as well. So the contractor is working very hard. It's a race against time though, because the asphalt plants will soon be closing. So overall, we still plan to have a completely functioning bridge in the spring of next year. It was our goal to have at least some preliminary asphalt down this year though, and have a functioning bridge over the winter. At this time, I can't report one way or the other. The contractor continues to work hard to try to make this happen. But I will say it's the timing for completion, at least to have traffic over the bridge over the winter is very risky right now. And I'd be happy to report in a couple of weeks at our next meeting where we stand on that. Thank you.
Great. Through you, Mayor Kenneth. Thank you very much, Thomas. I appreciate it.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to tell everyone, if they don't know already, that it is National Addiction Awareness Week. And this year, the theme is Driving Change Together. And it's all about collaborating as a community to make change happen. And we want to reassess the way that we think about substance use and people who use drugs. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to communication items. Councillor Harrigan and Councillor C. McGregor, can you just move those, please?
Happy to.
So moved, Mayor Kenneth.
Here's no questions. We'll put it to vote.
Just anyone opposed?
Okay, perfect. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to the reading of the bylaws, first and second. Councillor Solomon and Councillor Pincinel, can you move that, please?
So moved, Your Worship.
And I'll second that, Your Worship.
Okay, anyone opposed? Motion carried. Reading of the third and final, Councillor Foss and Councillor Finn, can I just move that, please?
So moved, Your Worship.
Seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. We'll move to resolution of council. Councillor Crew can have you, and Councillor Hall can wrap it up.
That council, Chatham-Kent Council adjourned to its next meeting to be held on Monday, December 6, 2021, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on the day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. I so move.
Happy to second, Mayor Kenneth.
Anyone opposed to ending our meeting at 7:24 p.m.? Hearing none, motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night.